Alright, so let's take a look at Outlook Web Access, the other features. Now first up, just going down memory lane a little bit here, this is what the fantastic Outlook Web Access 2000 looked like. Now at the time it was pretty good, I guess, since there wasn't too much competition out there and we didn't know any better. But these days it looks bland, there's no ability for drag drop, no right click support and so forth. So let's throw that away and move forward. So this is Outlook Web Access 2007. For those of you who have the Outlook client, that's a full fat client, then hopefully you'll see that it looks almost identical to the full client. We've got folders over here to get access through to everything. We've got live counts of the amount of messages that are in there. We've got our navigation pane just like we do with the fat client. I'll come back through to this in a second, which is new. We can arrange by a number of different criteria, so this currently is sorted by conversation, but I could arrange by date, by size, by flag, by absolutely anything. I can right click, so here what's happened is that I've right clicked on that particular message and I now get instead of an Internet Explorer right click pop-up menu, I now get an Outlook pop-up menu. So and again, I can do exactly what I would do if I was using the full Outlook client. I've got my preview pane over here and I can quickly have a read of the messages. From the preview pane I can interact with that and accept invites, again without needing to double click anything. This button you'll be very familiar with if you're even an Exchange 2003 user. So what I mean by that is Outlook Web Access 2003, you actually have to keep hitting this button such that, because what happens is that when mail arrives, mail periodically gets refreshed in this pane. So in other words, it'll go from 65 through to 66. But what happens is that that new message does not show up here. Let me just wipe the screen. So it goes to 66, but that message does not show up quickly anyway in your default view. So what happens is that when you click on this particular button, then it's a way of syncing these two things together, and it also checks to see if there's anything new in order to update that particular number. Now all of that is gone. With Outlook Web Access 2007, you'll pretty much never have to click that button again. So it updates live. So as soon as new mail comes in, this counter will update and the message will appear over here instantly. So that's very good news. It will save you a lot of clicking. Okay, and as I mentioned, this was something new. We'll touch on this a little bit later on, but it's a way of, via Outlook Web Access, getting access through to file shares internally and also SharePoint sites internally. All from Outlook Web Access with no VPN. Okay, that is huge. So it's kind of like an SSL VPN if you want to think about it that way, but it really makes it seamless to get access through to your internal network. And admins, if you're freaking out now, don't worry, it's all granularly controlled in terms of what people have access to. Okay, another view here, we've got the calendar. Again, this is all through Outlook Web Access, and there's proof. So for those of you that use Outlook 2007, again, it should look very, very familiar. We've got color-coded appointments, so we can categorize those appointments. So for example, blue might be personal, red might be important. Here, you might use orange for your status meetings and so forth. So you can color code that. You'll notice over here, the left-hand side, right there, there's a differentiation between an appointment that's tentative versus an appointment that's solid, if you like, that's been confirmed. So you can see here with these stripes, that means that it's a tentative booking. You get access to view recurrence. You've got different views that you can look at. Basically, it's very, very functional. Your appointments have drag and drop capability, so I can literally click it, drag it, drop it over here, and it's rescheduled. I can grab an appointment and shuffle it through to a calendar entry, and we'll move it through to the 19th in this case. So again, full drag and drop, full right-click support, very, very rich client. And the space, if you like, between the full fat Outlook client and Outlook Web Access has diminished greatly. Alright, now this one's a nice new one. It's something called the Scheduling Assistant, and it's new in Outlook 2007 or Exchange 2007. So let's quickly go through it. So the first thing that happens is that I would invite the people that I want in at my meeting. And when I do that, what Outlook does is that it churns out this content over here. And basically, if we look at this section here, what this thing here says is that it says the quality of the suggestion. If it's dark blue, it's poor. If it's light blue, it's good. And over here, it's great if it's white. Now, what that means is that I'm currently trying to get 3 people in on a meeting. But we're all busy, as you can see through these sections here. But what happens is that Outlook now goes and automatically, without me having to hunt around, finds out that on the 4th, on the 18th, the 25th, or the 8th, they're the best days for us to meet. As you can see here, we're all actually free on the 18th on that particular time slot. And you'll notice that it says 9 AM. And if we look here at 9 AM, it says at 9 AM we've got 2 rooms available, which I'll come to in a sec, but it says 3 of 3 free. So out of the 3 people, we can all meet. And you can visually see that here. Similarly, if we were to go through to the 25th would also have an open slot for all 3 of us. Now if I wipe that out, you'll notice here on the 19th, though, that it's this light blue. What that will mean is that out of the 3 people that I actually want at the meeting, in all likelihood, only 2 can make it. So in other words, if a majority of people can make it for the appointment, it will put it in through to this light blue. And if everybody can make it, it will put it in through to this white. So at a glance, you can basically see people's availability. Over here, this again is something new, but you can now, via the same scheduling assistant, book in which rooms you actually want to book. So they can be rooms or they can be resources. So it might be a overhead projector or a laptop or anything like that. So that should make life easier for a lot of people. The second thing over here is the address book enhancement. Now, if I were to this is not part of the scheduling assistant, right? So if I was to simply click on an address book button and then look up Jim, what would happen is that within that address book entry, sure, I get details like extensions and email and all that kind of information. But what's interesting and new is this information here in terms of the organization layer. So what this tells me is that this is Jim who we're looking up. So Jim seems to share the same manager as these other 2 people here. So this is Jim there. And they actually share a common manager, which is this Kim Allen person. Secondly, apart from, so in other words, so if I'm trying to get in contact with Jim, and let's say that Jim is in sales, actually he's a marketing manager, I should read. So if he's a marketing manager, if I can't get in touch with Jim, then since these 3 people basically report through to this same manager, then it may be a good idea for me to try and get in touch with this John Morris or with this Matt person, if I can read that clearly as well. And they may be able to help me out. Okay, so that's the related people. And this section here is availability. So again, if I'm trying to get in contact with Jim, it stands to reason that I'd want to know when he's free. So I can see that he's got just a little tiny crack in there that I can squeeze in if I want a meeting. So I think that's quite nice and quite a useful extension through the address book entry. Outlook Web Access, new powerful search. Okay, so what happens here is that if I want to find anything, I can simply type it into the search field, and as I'm typing stuff in, this section here will automatically start updating, and again it's as you type, you don't have to hit enter. And you can see here that we're actually getting hits where on the subject line it's got the search term that I'm actually looking for. Now on this top entry you'll see that there's nothing highlighted, but it's smart enough to, of course, not just look at the subject line, it can look at the content within that email, and as a matter of fact it can even look at attachments if you had any, providing it's been able to index them. So it's a really good feature. You'll find that once you start using it, it really saves a lot of time. It's so much better than the prior version of Search. Now on top of that, if we look at even more detail, you can click on this little drop down icon, which is this one here as well, and you get these new fields. So I can basically say, I want to search messages from John. This is to search within the content of the message, within the subject only and not within the body, or who it's sent to. And I can additionally add multiple criteria through to that particular search. So it's a way of doing ands, if you like. Web ready. Okay, this feature is again something completely brand new, and I think will be very well received by everybody. Alright, now what happens, situation is that, again we're still talking about Outlook Access here, so you're at say an internet kiosk, and next thing you know you get an email over here from this chap, and they say, okay, review this attachment. Now let's forget about this for the time being. Let me rub it out. Okay, so let's pretend that we're in Exchange 2003 or any other prior edition. So again, I see the attachment and I want to view it. Well, the problem is that I'm at an internet kiosk. Okay, and that internet kiosk may not have MS Word installed. Or this attachment could be anything, right? It could be a PDF, Excel, PowerPoint, absolutely anything. So if that application is not installed on the computer that I'm running Outlook Web Access on, I've got a problem, right? I can't see that attachment. So I can save that attachment through the machine perhaps, but I can't view it. So this new feature now here enables us to say, well, if we don't have the locally installed application, why don't we render it in HTML? Alright, so what happens now is I click on this, and now, hey presto, I get my Word file in a very simple format. So this in Word, for example, this might be, in color and, all nicely laid out in columns like that, and this might be in bold and so on. And sure, it's going to give me a simplistic look and feel, but at least I get to the content, which is the main thing. So I can quickly see what's in there, and I'm done. I do not need the application installed. So I think that's a great addition. And if you're wondering, okay, well, what does it support? Well, you're basically looking at Word files, so in other words, docs. We're looking at Excel, so XLS attachments. We're looking at PowerPoint, right, PPT, and if you're wondering, yes, PDFs are supported as well. So these are basically the main 4 attachments that are supported by default for Web Ready. So I think that's an awesome feature, really, really nice. Another new one here is link access. Alright, so let's again deal with another scenario here. So we're at let's say we're still on our Paris holiday, okay? So we're at an internet kiosk, and then somebody sends us an email. So over here we've got Diane. She sends us an email, and she says, you know what, Michael, could you, because it says Michael, right? Could you please check this particular document that's stored on our SharePoint site? And she adds the URL. Now normally that would be okay, providing I'm inside my corporate headquarters or within some sort of private WAN, or if I have some sort of VPN. Now if you can't see this, what that says is HTTP my blah. So in other words, it could say server 3 / whatever. Okay, this is not a valid internet reachable address, right? It is a server name that is normally only valid within the corporate network. So normally this would be a big problem. So I would have to reply through to Diane and say, Diane, sorry, I'm out of the office. Could you please attach a document to the email and send it through to me? And that could waste time. Diane might not be available, and we've suddenly got a big problem. So, okay, what link access does is that it enables the Exchange server to effectively act as a proxy. So let me just draw this out. So I've got Exchange, and I've got internally, I've got file servers, and I've got SharePoint servers. So if you like, what happens is that I'm hitting the Exchange server, not necessarily directly, okay, but I'm hitting that Exchange server, and the Exchange server is proxying information through to file servers or SharePoint. So I can now click on that particular link. When I click on that link, I can now get through to this particular view. If you remember when we started talking about Outlook, in the navigation pane there was a thing that said Documents. Well, that Documents button, if you like, is what this thing here looks like. So now this view is SharePoint. It's a SharePoint site. So I can now right click on a particular document and I can say open, and if I say open, of course I need to have that application installed on my local machine. In this case it seems to be a PowerPoint file, in order to open it up. But just like before, I can now use the feature that we just talked about, the web ready, which means that I can select open as a web page. So even if I don't have that application locally installed on my machine, I can simply see it in HTML. Okay, so link access and web ready actually work hand in hand, and it's a way of being able to reach your SharePoint systems and your internal file shares now via the Exchange server, which acts as a proxy now. And like I mentioned before, this can be fully controlled by the administrators. Improved out-of-office assistant. Okay, what this thing here is that, again, scenario, you go out of the office, or sorry, let's say that you're planning to go on a interstate trip of some kind on Friday, and today is Tuesday. Well, what will typically happen is that the days prior to Friday you're going to be very busy. Next thing you know, you're on the plane and you've forgotten to set your out-of-office assistant message. So what you can do now is you can actually go in and schedule the out-of-office assistant to start at a particular time and day, which is quite handy. Similarly to that, let's say that you're at a situation where you might be an IT admin, and say that a company, that one of your customers has had their networks hacked, and you're over there trying to recover all of the actual systems. So you actually go in and you set an out-of-office message. Now what happens here is that you don't want other customers that come in via the internet, when they hit your particular email box, getting a reply saying, you know, sorry, I'm a customer called customer ABC for 3 days because they've been hacked. Please don't disturb me, right? So what you can do now is you can have an external out-of-office assistant as well as an internal out-of-office message, perhaps saying exactly that. So you can be honest with, you know, the internal team, but with the corporate customers out here, I'm not saying don't be honest, but obviously, you know, you've got to perhaps change a message to make it a little bit more palatable.